The diner was quiet that morning, the kind of small-town place where the scent of bacon and fresh coffee lingered in the air, where the regulars greeted each other by name. At a corner booth, an old man sat alone, his posture slightly hunched but dignified. His name was William Bill Harris, an 81-year-old Vietnam veteran. His faded army jacket was neatly folded over the seat beside him, and a small silver pin rested on the lapel. He came here every Thursday for pancakes and coffee, keeping to himself, his presence a silent reminder of a generation that had given everything and asked for nothing. But that morning, the peace was broken. The door slammed open, and in walked a thug, mid-20s, tattooed arms, a cheap leather jacket, and eyes that scanned the room with arrogance. He was the kind of man who looked for weakness, who enjoyed turning other people's silence into his stage. He spotted Bill at the booth and smirked. "Old man," he sneered, strutting over. "You think anybody cares about your stupid war stories? You sit here like some kind of hero." Bill didn't look up right away. He stirred his coffee slowly, the lines on his face carved deep with years of battles, both in war and in life. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, quiet, but steady. "Son," he said, "you've got no idea what respect means. Sit down before you make a fool of yourself." The thug's smirk twisted into anger. He wasn't used to being dismissed, especially not by someone he saw as weak. Without warning, he slapped the old man across the face, the sound echoing through the diner like a gunshot. Plates clattered, a waitress gasped, and silence fell. Bill didn't fight back. He simply sat there, his cheek red, his eyes unflinching. He had faced worse than this, but the diner's door creaked again. This time it wasn't just anyone walking in. It was Jack Harris, Bill's son. Jack was in his late 40s, broad-shouldered, rough around the edges, with a heavy beard and sharp eyes that burned with intensity. And he wasn't alone. Behind him walked 6 men, their presence filling the room like thunder. They wore leather vests emblazoned with a fearsome insignia, the Hell's Angels. The thug froze, his smirk faltering. Everyone in the diner knew who the Hell's Angels were, and they knew better than to cross them. Jack's eyes locked on his father, sitting quietly with the red mark on his cheek. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He turned to the thug, his jaw clenched tight. "You touched my father?" Jack's voice was low, but it carried the weight of fire and steel. The thug swallowed, his arrogance slipping. "I didn't mean nothing. Just playing around." Jack stepped forward, his boots heavy against the linoleum floor. The angels spread out behind him, their silence more terrifying than words. One of them shut the diner door, flipping the sign to closed. "You don't put your hands on a man who's lived through more than you could survive in a single day," Jack growled. "You don't disrespect a soldier. And you sure as hell don't touch my father." The thug tried to backpedal, his bravado gone. "Look, man, I didn't know he was your old man. I didn't mean—" But Jack didn't let him finish. He grabbed the thug by the collar, yanking him forward until they were face to face. The diner's patrons held their breath. "You think being tough means picking on the weak?" Jack hissed. "You've never seen tough. Tough is a man who fought for his country, came home with scars, and still wakes up every day with honor." You're nothing," the thug stammered, his voice breaking, but before he could make another excuse, one of the angels spoke from behind Jack. His voice was calm, almost amused. "Teach him a lesson, brother. Respect's not free." Jack didn't throw a punch. He didn't need to. He shoved the thug back against the booth, his eyes never leaving him. The message was clear. One more move and the consequences would be brutal. "Get out," Jack said finally, his voice sharp. "And if I ever hear you laid a hand on another old man, another veteran, or anyone who can't fight back, you won't be walking away next time." The thug stumbled. Scrambling for the door, his pride shattered. He pushed past the heavy silence and vanished into the daylight, his swagger gone. For a moment the diner stayed quiet, everyone too stunned to move. Then Jack turned to his father. "You all right, Dad?" he asked, his voice softening. Bill gave a small smile, one corner of his lips tugging up. "Takes more than that to rattle me. But I'm proud of you, son." Jack pulled out the seat across from his father and sat down. The angels gathered around the booth, not as an intimidating gang, but as brothers paying silent respect to the old man. The waitress brought fresh coffee without being asked, her hands trembling slightly. Bill looked around at the group of leather-clad men sitting with him, his son at his side, and for the first time in years, his eyes welled up. He had fought for his country, but in that moment, he realized he was still protected, not by the military but by family, loyalty, and the fierce brotherhood that refused to let dishonor stand. The diner slowly filled with murmurs of relief, some patrons nodding in respect. What had started as an ugly act of cruelty ended with a reminder that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned, and sometimes it must be defended. Bill took a slow sip of his coffee, his hands steady again. Across from him, Jack leaned back in the booth, watching his father with pride. "Dad," he said, his voice carrying both weight and love, "no one lays a hand on you, not while I'm breathing." And with that, the old soldier and his son sat together, surrounded by men who lived by loyalty and brotherhood. The diner returning to its calm, but forever changed. Everyone who had witnessed the moment knew they had seen something more than just confrontation. They had seen honor defended, respect restored, and love made fierce in the face of cruelty. It was a reminder that even in a world where disrespect is cheap, courage and loyalty still had a price that no coward could afford.